more than 200 million Canadian dollars. Gone. Not stolen in a midnight hack, not burned in a bank fire, not wired to some obvious offshore account in broad daylight. According to the company, the keys to that fortune were locked inside an encrypted laptop, and only one man knew the password. That man was Gerald Cotten. In December 2018, Cotten died in Jaipur, India. At least, that is the official record. Weeks later, his cryptocurrency exchange told the public something almost impossible to believe. The founder was dead, the keys were gone, and tens of thousands of customers could no longer access their money. It sounded like a tragic accident. Then the blockchain said otherwise. Researchers began tracing the exchange's so-called cold wallets, the secure reserves where the missing millions were supposedly trapped. Many of them were already empty. Not after he died, before. And just like that, the entire story changed. This was no longer just a mystery about a dead founder and a lost password. It was the story of a man who may have been draining the vault long before anyone realized the vault was hollow. This is the rise, collapse, and afterlife of QuadrigaCX, and the question that still haunts one of crypto's darkest scandals. Did Gerald Cotten die with the money? Or was the money already gone? Vancouver, 2013. To most of the world, Bitcoin still looked ridiculous. Regulators barely understood it. Banks treated it like radioactive code. The whole industry felt improvised, unstable, and vaguely unserious. To Gerald Cotten, it looked like a shortcut to power. He was young, calm, and disarmingly ordinary, the kind of founder people trusted without noticing they were doing it. He didn't look dangerous. He looked competent, polite, mild, exactly the kind of man you'd hand your savings to if he spoke softly enough. That made him perfect for crypto's first trust experiment. QuadrigaCX emerged in the early days of Canadian crypto as a simple promise. An easier way to buy and sell digital assets in a market where almost nobody knew what they were doing. People wanted exposure to Bitcoin. Quadriga gave them access. And for a while, it worked. As crypto prices climbed, so did Quadriga. The exchange grew into one of the biggest in Canada. More users, more deposits, more money flowing through a system most customers would never see from the inside. By late 2018, more than 76,000 users were owed funds, and the hole linked to the collapse would eventually be estimated at more than 200 million Canadian dollars. From the outside, Cotten looked like a pioneer. From the inside, the structure was dangerously fragile. Later investigations and court filings would describe weak controls, poor record-keeping, and a company where far too much power appeared to be concentrated around one man. The exchange presented itself like a modern financial platform, but underneath the branding, the architecture looked less like an institution and more like a single point of failure wearing a suit. And when that kind of system breaks, it doesn't crack slowly, it implodes all at once. In December 2018, Gerald Cotten traveled to India with his wife, Jennifer Robertson. Publicly, the trip was framed around honeymoon plans and charitable work connected to an orphanage project. On the surface, it fit the image perfectly. Successful founder, international travel, polished life, good intentions. Then people started looking at the timeline. Less than 2 weeks before the trip, Cotten signed a detailed will. For a 30-year-old man, it struck many observers as unusually urgent. It outlined substantial assets and left major holdings to his wife. Then, on December 9th, according to official records in India, Gerald Cotten died in Jaipur from complications related to Crohn's disease. And that is where the facts stop feeling reassuring. Because in a story built entirely on trust, the aftermath felt like fuel poured directly onto suspicion. The founder dies overseas. There is no independent autopsy performed in India. The body is embalmed quickly. The paperwork exists. But once hundreds of millions are on the line, paperwork alone stops calming anyone down. Then comes the bombshell. Weeks later, Quadriga tells its customers it cannot access a huge portion of the exchange's cryptocurrency because Cotten alone held the keys. No backup, no second executive with access, No recovery plan strong enough to survive the sudden death of a single founder. If that sounds insane, that's because it is. A platform trusted with more than 200 million Canadian dollars had apparently built its entire survival plan around the assumption that one man would never suddenly disappear. At first, many people accepted it as a nightmare scenario. Tragic, extraordinary, catastrophic. Then the wallets started talking. Crypto leaves fingerprints. That is the irony at the center of this case. The industry sells itself on secrecy, but blockchains remember everything. Every transfer, every destination, every withdrawal, permanently time-stamped, publicly visible. So when independent researchers and forensic teams began tracing Quadriga's so-called cold wallets, they expected to find frozen reserves. Instead, they found something worse. Emptiness. Wallets the company had implied contained massive customer holdings often showed little or no meaningful balance. In some cases, funds had moved long before Cotten's death in India, long before the public announcement, long before the company claimed the money had become inaccessible. That changed everything. This was no longer a story about money trapped by a dead man's password. It was becoming a story about money that may have already been gone. Court-appointed monitors, including Ernst & Young, later described severe problems: missing records, weak internal controls, and a business structure where customer funds, company operations, and personal activity blurred together in ways that should never happen at financial scale. Investigators also uncovered evidence suggesting Cotten had used fake accounts and internal credits to trade against his own customers, while losses were allegedly covered using incoming deposits and movements across other platforms. Not a fortress, not a vault, a hole. A hole painted to look like a company. And once that picture starts forming, every earlier detail turns radioactive. The laptop stops looking like the center of the mystery. It starts looking like the decoy. Because if the wallets were already empty, then the death in India didn't create the disaster. It only revealed it. By 2019, the internet had already split into two camps. In one version of the story, Gerald Cotten was dead, a reckless founder whose fraud, mismanagement, or both finally collapsed the moment he disappeared. In the other version, he had engineered the perfect exit: fake the death, move the money, become a ghost. It was the kind of theory the internet was built to worship: a young crypto founder, a fortune missing, an overseas death, no clean answers, no way to ask the central figure anything ever again. Investors demanded more. Lawyers representing affected users pushed for deeper scrutiny. Public pressure grew so intense that even the idea of exhumation entered the conversation, with calls to verify the body and silence the theories once and for all. But what never arrived was the clean, cinematic ending conspiracy culture wanted. No dramatic public moment reopened the grave and settled everything forever. No single piece of paper erased the distrust. And that may be the most disturbing part of the entire scandal. Once trust collapses completely, even evidence has trouble getting through. Quadriga was never just a financial failure. It was a trust failure so total that every official answer began sounding to some people like part of the lie. That is how myths survive. Not because they are proven, because the truth arrives too late, through institutions nobody believes anymore. Years later, the rumors still refuse to die. People claim they've seen him in airports, beach towns, foreign cafes. Older, thinner, tanned, alive. None of it has ever been verified. Every supposed lead dissolves the moment anyone seriously investigates it. And still the myth survives because the architecture of the case was almost perfect for it. A young founder, a fortune in missing funds, an overseas death, a company with weak controls, and a public told that the passwords died with the only man who knew them. Jennifer Robertson later agreed to forfeit millions in assets through settlement processes tied to the collapse. She has repeatedly maintained that she had no knowledge of any fraud. And that matters, because the story is already dark enough without pretending every suspicion is a proven fact. What we do know is devastating enough. Quadriga customers were left staring into a void worth more than 200 million Canadian dollars. The company's story changed. The wallets contradicted it, and the founder at the center of everything was no longer alive to answer the questions. or no longer available to answer them, depending on what you believe. Either way, the result is the same. An empire built on trust collapsed into rumor. And once that happened, Gerald Cotten stopped being just a founder. He became a ghost story told in balance sheets. Gerald Cotten may be dead, the fraud may have outlived him, or the mystery may have swallowed the truth so completely that by now, almost nobody can separate one from the other. But one thing is certain, QuadrigaCX did not collapse because crypto was too advanced for ordinary people to understand. It collapsed because too much trust, too little oversight, and too much power were concentrated in one man. That is the real horror in this story, not the grave, the design. So tell me what you think. Did Gerald Cotten die with the answers? Or was the perfect exit the final trade he ever made? Comment below. And subscribe, because the next system flaw is already hiding in plain sight. Subscribe for more. The files are never closed.